Okay, so get this. We're diving deep today into something that's causing some serious waves in college sports. Remember all those crazy headlines about star quarterbacks? You know, the ones about those guys getting paid $1 million before they even stepped onto campus.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that whole wild NIL deal thing.
Yeah.
It might be coming to a screeching halt.
It's definitely a big moment. Yeah, the Department of Education just dropped this memo, and it could completely change how money works in college athletics.
We're talking about a potential earthquake here.
Yeah.
This memo, it's from the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, and it's causing a major stir because it basically says that all that NIL money that cash athletes get for their name, image, and likeness,
Yeah.
all that could be subject to Title IX rules.
And that's a huge deal. Title IX, for anyone who needs a refresher, it's a super important law that says you can't discriminate based on sex in any school or education program that gets federal funding. And it's been a total game changer for women in education, and especially in athletics.
So Title IX has basically made sure women have equal opportunities in sports for decades. And now it's being applied to this whole new world of NIL deals.
Exactly. The memo says, well, it argues that NIL money should be seen as athletic financial assistance, and under Title IX, that assistance has to be split up fairly between men's and women's sports.
Hold on. So let me get this straight.
Yeah.
Does this mean universities can't just shower their star quarterbacks and basketball players with millions while women's teams are struggling to get funding?
That's exactly what this could mean. This could be a total game changer for women's sports. We could see a ton more funding, creating better opportunities, better facilities, and just stronger programs overall.
That sounds amazing for women's athletics. But what about the big-time football programs, those powerhouse teams? Won't this shake things up for them?
Absolutely. Don't forget, we are about to see universities directly paying athletes a share of their revenue. This was under the proposed House settlement. We're talking potentially over $20.5 million at the biggest schools. And you know where a lot of that money was going to go.
Straight to football and men's basketball.
Exactly.
So this memo, it just throws a wrench into those plans. Schools might have to completely rethink their NIL strategies now if they want to stay compliant with Title IX.
Yeah, they definitely will. And this brings up so many questions. How are these huge football programs going to adjust to getting a smaller piece of the pie? Will this make college sports more balanced? Or will it create a whole new set of problems?
It's wild to think about all the ripple effects this could have. We have these massive football programs that are basically businesses in themselves. And then we have smaller schools, especially those outside the Power Five conferences. They rely so much on football revenue. What's going to happen to them?
That's one of the big unknowns. Smaller athletic programs, they already have tighter budgets. And this could put them at a real disadvantage when it comes to attracting top athletes, especially if they can't match the NIL deals offered by wealthier schools. It's a valid concern. And I'm sure athletic directors all over the country are losing sleep over it right now.
This whole thing feels like a huge shift in college sports. And one of the biggest questions with this Title IX thing is those third-party collectives.
Yeah, the collectives. They've become big players in the NIL world, throwing tons of money into deals for athletes.
I've seen stuff about collectives backed by rich alumni and boosters. They're basically operating as these shadow athletic departments. And they've been a huge force behind those million-dollar deals.
Right, and they've made this whole thing way more complicated. The DOE memo actually talks about them directly, saying that payments from collectives, well, they aren't considered financial assistance right now.
Wait, so if the money isn't coming straight from the universities, does that mean they don't have to worry about Title IX?
Not so fast. The memo also warns that differences in NIL agreements, like if collectives are giving way more to men's sports, well, that could trigger Title IX obligations. It's kind of a gray area legally.
So they're saying collectives are important, but they're not giving a clear answer on how they fit into Title IX.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, we're watching you. The Department of Education is basically saying they're keeping an eye on these collectives and how what they do affects gender equity in college sports.
It sounds like this is going to be a huge battle in the next few months and years. Universities, collectives, athletes, legal experts, everyone's going to be trying to figure out how this all works.
It's going to be fascinating to watch. And it's not just some theoretical debate either. We're already seeing real legal challenges that could change the future of NIL and Title IX.
You're talking about actual lawsuits, right? Cases where female athletes are saying there are Title IX violations.
Exactly. There's a big one against the University of Oregon. Over 24 female athletes are part of it. They're saying there are gender disparities in athletic resources and opportunities.
Wow, that's a lot of athletes coming together to challenge the system. How does this connect to the DOE memo?
Well, the lawyer representing those athletes, He thinks this memo makes their case stronger. The argument is that if NIL money is really athletic financial assistance, then any difference in those deals between men and women could be a Title IX violation.
So this memo could give athletes more power to fight back if they think they're not getting their fair share.
It definitely could. And it's not just the Oregon case either. This memo could affect other Title IX lawsuits all over the country.
This feels like a turning point. And it's not just about money. It's about being fair and making sure things are equal for all student athletes. We started talking about those million-dollar quarterbacks, but this is about way more than a few big-name players.
Absolutely. This is about the core idea of Title IX and how it applies to college athletics today. It's about making sure women have the same chances as men, the same chances to compete, to succeed, and to benefit from being an athlete.
This is crazy to think about. This memo could change everything. It feels like we're seeing a massive change in college sports, something that could affect things for years to come.
I think so too. We're in uncharted territory now. NIL deals have already shaken things up in college athletics. And now this Title IX thing, well, it just adds a whole other layer of complexity.
It really makes you wonder how it's all going to shake out. Will women's sports finally get the support they need? Will we see things become more equal? Or will this create a bunch of new problems we haven't even thought of?
That's the big question. There are good points on both sides. On the one hand, this could be a huge win for gender equity in college sports. We might see way more money going to women's programs, better facilities, more scholarships, more opportunities for female athletes.
That's exciting to think about. But I can't stop thinking about those smaller programs, the ones with tiny budgets. How are they going to compete if they can't match the NIL deals from the big schools?
That's a real worry. It's possible that this could actually make the gap bigger between the rich programs and everyone else. The Power 5 conferences, they have so much money from football, they might be able to handle these new rules okay. But smaller schools, especially those outside the Power 5, yeah, they could really struggle to keep up.
So this memo, it could accidentally make things worse for the schools that are already struggling.
Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. And I bet athletic directors and university leaders are thinking about it right now.
It feels like there's so much we don't know. So many things could happen. What's the most important thing for people to understand about this whole situation?
I think the biggest takeaway is you can't just throw all the money at football and men's basketball anymore. Those days are over. Schools have to figure out new ways to support all of their athletes, and they have to do it fairly.
It sounds like things are going to be a lot more transparent from now on, and schools can't ignore gender disparities anymore.
Right. And it's not just about following the law. It's about doing the right thing. It's about realizing that all student athletes are valuable, no matter if they're male or female, or what sport they play.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive. It's clear that this memo is going to have a huge impact on college sports. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me neither. College sports are at a crossroads, and the choices people make now, they're going to have a big impact on student athletes for years to come.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into a different topic. Until then, keep learning and keep exploring.